This is the story of Keisha Alexandria Monroe, and what you're about to hear will shake you to your core. A story about choices, consequences, and how sometimes the grass on the other side isn't just greener, it's poisoned. This is her story. The story of how she threw away everything she had for what she thought was everything she wanted, only to discover that her dreams had turned into a nightmare she could never wake up from. But before we dive into this roller coaster of emotion, I need you to do something for me right now. Subscribe to Tales After Dark immediately and smash that notification bell. Trust me when I say you absolutely cannot afford to miss a single upload from this channel. Hit that like button if you believe actions have consequences, and drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from. I read every single comment, and I want to know where this cautionary tale is reaching across this world. Now, let's begin. 15 years. That's how long Keisha was married to Jamal Terrence Washington. 15 precious years of her life that she could never, ever get back. 15 years of building a home, creating memories, and standing beside a man who loved her with his whole heart. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Let me take you all the way back to the beginning, back to when they were just two young people madly in love and ready to conquer the world together. It was the summer of 2008 when Keisha and Jamal first crossed paths. They both got hired on the exact same day at Peterson Global Solutions, a prestigious marketing and consulting powerhouse right there in Atlanta. Y'all, Keisha remembers walking into that massive office building, her knees literally shaking, her palms sweating so badly she had to keep wiping them on her skirt. She was only 25 years old, fresh out of Spelman College with her business administration degree clutched tight, and this burning hunger to prove herself in the corporate arena. Jamal was 26, having just completed his marketing degree from Morehouse. They were both starting at the absolute bottom, making barely enough money to keep the lights on and ramen noodles in their cabinets. But listen, they had something far more valuable than dollar bills. They had hope burning bright inside their chests. They had ambition that wouldn't quit. They had dreams that kept them up at night. On her very first day at Peterson Global, Keisha got completely embarrassingly lost trying to locate the break room. She had wandered down the wrong corridor at least 4 times, and panic was starting to set in real heavy. That's when Jamal appeared around the corner like some kind of guardian angel, coffee cup in his strong hands, the most beautiful smile lighting up his handsome face. "You look like you're on some kind of secret mission," he said, his deep voice washing over her like warm honey. His eyes were so kind, so genuine. "Or maybe you're just lost." Keisha felt her entire face heat up with embarrassment. "Definitely lost," she admitted, laughing nervously. "I'm new here, and I swear this building is like a maze designed to torture people." "Come on, beautiful, I'll show you the way," he said, gesturing for her to follow him with this confident swagger. "I got lost my first day too, so you're definitely not alone in this struggle." They walked to the break room together, and what started as a simple introduction became the beginning of the deepest conversation she'd had in months. Jamal opened up about his background, about his dreams of becoming a partner at a firm someday, about the kind of legacy he wanted to build in this world. And Keisha listened, really truly listened with her whole heart. She asked him questions that made his eyes light up with passion. She could see the fire burning inside him when he talked about his goals and aspirations. By the time they finally left that break room, she felt like she had found something special. Not just a coworker, not just a friend, but potentially something so much more. Over the next several weeks, Keisha and Jamal became absolutely inseparable. They'd meet up for lunch every single day in the break room, laughing about their sad little sandwiches and complaining about the terrible office coffee that tasted like battery acid. They'd stay late after everyone else had gone home, perfecting presentations together, bouncing ideas off each other, offering support and encouragement when the work got overwhelming. They were the only 2 people in that entire office who seemed to understand what it felt like to want success so desperately you could taste it on your tongue. One beautiful Friday evening, after they had absolutely crushed a major presentation for an important client, Jamal asked Keisha if she wanted to grab dinner with him. Her heart literally jumped into her throat. Every nerve in her body was screaming yes. "Absolutely," she said without even a second's hesitation. "I would love that more than anything." That dinner led to another dinner, which led to another, and another after that. Before she even knew what was happening, Jamal asked her to be his girlfriend, and she said yes so fast she nearly bit her tongue. This incredible man made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced before. He made her feel like she mattered, like her thoughts and opinions were valuable. More than anything, he made her feel like they were partners on this journey called life, like they were an unstoppable team. Those early years of their relationship were absolutely magical. Even though they were struggling financially, they lived in this tiny apartment in a questionable part of Atlanta. The air conditioning barely functioned during those brutal Georgia summers. The plumbing made strange noises at 3 in the morning. The neighbors upstairs fought constantly. But honestly, they didn't care about any of that nonsense. They had each other, and that was all that truly mattered to them. They'd sit out on their cramped little balcony at night, watching the city lights twinkling in the distance, talking for hours about their dreams, making elaborate plans for the future they were going to build together. Jamal's ambition was absolutely infectious. He talked constantly about wanting to climb that corporate ladder, about the deals he was determined to close, about the clients he was going to impress and win over. And Keisha believed in him completely, y'all. She believed with every fiber of her being that he had what it took to succeed beyond his wildest dreams. So she supported him with everything she had. That's what you do when you love someone with your whole heart, right? You support them, you believe in them, especially when they're starting to doubt themselves and their abilities. During those early struggling years, Jamal worked incredibly long hours. He'd come home absolutely exhausted, his shoulders hunched forward, stress carved into every line of his beautiful face. But instead of complaining or making him feel guilty, Keisha would have a hot meal waiting for him. She'd massage the tension from his shoulders while he ate, listening carefully to everything he needed to say about his day, about the clients he was trying to impress, about the cutthroat competition from other hungry employees who wanted the same promotions. "Baby, you're going to make it to the top," she'd tell him softly, running her fingers through his hair as he relaxed on their worn-out second-hand couch. He'd look up at her with those eyes full of doubt and fear, and she'd watch him visibly relax, tension melting away. "I believe in you completely. You're destined for greatness." Those quiet moments mattered so much. She didn't realize it at the time, but she was laying a foundation for everything that would come later. She was building him up piece by piece, confidence by confidence, belief by belief. The sacrifices Keisha made during those years weren't even conscious decisions. It just seemed completely natural to her. When Jamal had to work weekends, she'd cancel all her plans without hesitation to be there waiting for him when he got home. When he needed help preparing crucial presentations, she'd stay up until 3 in the morning researching data, writing content, editing slides until they were absolutely perfect. When money got tight, and Lord knows it was always tight, she'd go without things she desperately needed so that Jamal could have what was essential for his career advancement. A new suit for an important client meeting that cost half their rent? She made it happen. New dress shoes that looked more professional and polished? Bought them without thinking twice. A faster, more reliable laptop when his old one kept crashing? She saved for months in secret to surprise him with it. Her girls started noticing the pattern and getting worried. Her best friend since college, Tamika, pulled her aside one afternoon when they met up for coffee at their favorite spot. "Keisha, girl, I'm seriously worried about you," Tamika said, her voice filled with genuine concern. "You're always doing everything for Jamal, always sacrificing, always putting his needs first. When's the last time that man did something special for you? When's the last time he put you first?" Keisha got defensive immediately, feeling like she had to protect their relationship. "Girl, it's not even like that," she insisted, waving her hand dismissively. "We're a team, you know. Right now it's his turn to climb that ladder and establish himself. Once he gets his big promotion, once he's really established in his career, everything will be different. We'll have more time together, more money to enjoy life, more freedom to do what we want. Then it'll be my turn to shine." But Tamika just gave her this sad, knowing smile, like she could see something Keisha was completely blind to, like she understood something about her future that she couldn't comprehend yet. By early 2010, Jamal finally got his first major promotion. He was made a junior manager, overseeing a small but important team of consultants. Y'all, Keisha was so incredibly proud of him she literally could not contain her excitement. They celebrated that momentous night by splurging on an expensive dinner at this fancy restaurant they absolutely could not afford. She wore the nicest dress she owned, the one she saved for special occasions. Jamal wore a brand new suit that she had secretly been saving up for weeks to buy him as a surprise. They danced in the tiny kitchen of their cramped apartment to music playing softly on his phone. And he spun her around and around until she was dizzy and laughing. Then he kissed her so deeply she forgot her own name. "Baby, we're going to make it all the way to the top," he whispered against her hair, holding her close. "I promise you, everything we've sacrificed is going to be worth it." And she believed him with her whole entire heart. She truly, genuinely did. She thought that magical night was the beginning of their happily ever after, the start of everything they'd been working toward. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that it was actually the beginning of the end of everything she held dear. But it wasn't Jamal who would destroy their marriage. It was Keisha. It was the choices she was about to make. It was the temptation she was about to fall for. It was the grass on the other side that looked so impossibly green she couldn't resist reaching for it. His name was Darius Maximilian Sterling, and he was about to change her life in ways she could never ever have imagined. Darius Sterling joined Peterson Global Solutions in late 2011 as the new Senior Vice President of Operations. From the moment he walked through those office doors, everything changed. The entire atmosphere shifted. People started whispering, gossiping, speculating, and Lord have mercy, everyone understood why. Darius was absolutely stunning. 6'3" with skin like polished mahogany. He had these piercing eyes that seemed to look straight through you and see things you didn't even know about yourself. He wore custom-tailored suits that probably cost more than Keisha's entire annual salary. He drove a midnight black Mercedes S-Class. He carried himself with this confidence, this presence that made everyone in the room stop and pay attention when he entered. But it wasn't just his looks or his money or his style that made Darius so magnetic. It was his power. It was the way he commanded respect without even trying. It was how he could walk into a meeting and within minutes have everyone agreeing with whatever strategy he proposed. Darius was a divorced man in his early 40s with no children. He'd built his fortune through smart investments and strategic business moves. He was known throughout Atlanta's business community as a shark, someone who could smell opportunity from miles away and wasn't afraid to go after exactly what he wanted. And apparently what he wanted was Keisha. It started innocently enough. Darius would stop by her desk to ask questions about reports or data she'd compiled. He'd compliment her work, telling her she had a sharp mind and keen insights that were being wasted in her current position. He'd suggest she should be thinking about advancement opportunities, about what she could achieve if she really pushed herself. At first, Keisha thought he was just being encouraging, just being a good executive who recognized talent. But then the attention became more frequent, more personal, more intense. He started inviting her to lunch meetings to discuss career development opportunities. He'd ask about her background, her education, her ambitions. He'd listen intently when she talked, like every word coming out of her mouth was precious and important. He made her feel intelligent, capable, seen in a way that she hadn't felt in a long time. Because here's the truth, she didn't want to admit to herself. Jamal had changed since his promotion. He was busier, more distracted, more focused on his own career trajectory. They barely talked anymore beyond surface-level conversations about bills and schedules. The romantic connection they'd shared was fading. The intimacy was disappearing. They were becoming roommates who shared a bed rather than passionate partners building a life together. And into that growing void stepped Darius Sterling with his attention, his compliments, his promises of everything she didn't even know she was missing. By mid-2012, Darius and Keisha had crossed a line that she knew deep down was dangerous. They'd had lunch together probably 20 times by then. They'd had coffee together countless mornings. They'd stayed late at the office working on projects side by side, their hands occasionally brushing, electricity crackling in the air between them. One evening in July, Darius asked her to stay late to help him finalize a presentation for the board. Jamal had texted earlier saying he'd be working late himself, so she didn't think twice about agreeing. They worked in Darius's massive corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. They were sitting close together, reviewing slides on his laptop, when suddenly his hand covered hers on the mouse. "Keisha," he said softly, his voice doing things to her insides that made her shiver. "I need to tell you something I've been holding back for months now." Her heart was pounding so hard, she thought it might explode right out of her chest. "What is it?" she whispered. "I'm attracted to you," he said bluntly, turning to look directly into her eyes. "I've been attracted to you since the first day I saw you. You're intelligent, beautiful, ambitious. You're everything I've been looking for, and I think you feel the same way about me." She should have stood up right then and there. She should have told him she was married, that this was inappropriate, that they needed to maintain professional boundaries. She should have walked out of that office and never looked back. But she didn't. Instead, she sat there frozen, her mind racing, her body betraying her with how much she wanted what he was offering. I'm married," she finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "I know," Darius said, not backing away even an inch. "And I'm not trying to disrespect that. But I also know that you're not happy. I can see it in your eyes every single day. I can hear it in your voice when you talk about your home life. You deserve more than what you're getting, Keisha. You deserve someone who sees your value, who appreciates your brilliance, who can give you the life you've always dreamed about." His words hit her like arrows straight to the heart. Because he was right. She wasn't happy. She hadn't been truly happy in months, maybe even years. Jamal and she had drifted so far apart that they barely even recognized each other anymore. "I can't do this," she said, standing up quickly, grabbing her bag. "This is wrong. I need to go." But Darius didn't try to stop her. He just smiled this knowing smile and said, "Think about it, Keisha. Think about what you really want from your life. And when you're ready to have an honest conversation about your future, you know where to find me." She left his office shaking, confused, overwhelmed with emotions she couldn't even begin to process. Over the next several months, the temptation only grew stronger and more impossible to resist. Darius continued pursuing her relentlessly, but always with class, always with sophistication. He'd send flowers to her desk with notes that said things like, "For the most brilliant woman I know," or "Thinking of you today and always." He'd arrange for business trips where they'd end up in the same city at the same time, staying in luxury hotels she'd only ever dreamed about. He'd take her to expensive restaurants where the wine cost more per bottle than her monthly car payment. He'd show her a lifestyle that seemed impossibly glamorous compared to the struggling middle-class existence she and Jamal were barely maintaining. And slowly, steadily, he wore down her resistance. By early 2013, Keisha and Jamal were barely speaking to each other anymore. He was consumed with his work, constantly stressed, always exhausted. They hadn't had a real conversation in weeks. They hadn't been intimate in even longer. They were living separate lives under the same roof. Meanwhile, Darius was offering her everything she thought she wanted: passion, excitement, adventure, wealth, status, a chance at a completely different life. In April of 2013, Keisha made the decision that would destroy everything. Darius had invited her to accompany him on a business trip to Miami. Officially, she was there as his assistant to help with presentations and client meetings. Unofficially, they both knew what was really happening. They stayed at the Fontainebleau Hotel in adjacent luxury suites. On their second night there, after a successful client dinner, Darius invited her to his suite for a nightcap. She went, God help her. She went, knowing exactly what was going to happen. They sat on his balcony overlooking the ocean, drinking expensive champagne, talking about everything and nothing. And then he kissed her, and she kissed him back. And everything she'd been holding back, everything she'd been denying herself, everything she'd been running from came flooding out. That night changed everything. After Miami, there was no going back. Darius and Keisha began a full-blown affair that consumed her completely. They'd meet at his luxury condo in Buckhead. They'd take weekend trips together, making up business conferences and professional development seminars as excuses. They'd spend hours together talking, laughing, making love in ways that made her forget her own name. Darius made her feel alive again. He made her feel desired, appreciated, valued. He told her she was brilliant and beautiful. He talked about their future together, about the life they could build once she left Jamal. He promised her the world, and she believed every single word. She knows what you're thinking. You're judging her right now. You're thinking she's a terrible person, a cheater, someone who betrayed her loyal husband who'd done nothing wrong. And you're absolutely right. She was all of those things. But in those moments, caught up in the intensity of what she and Darius shared, she convinced herself that this was destiny. She convinced herself that sometimes you have to follow your heart even when it leads you away from your commitments. She convinced herself that she deserved happiness, even if it meant destroying someone else's world. For an entire year, Keisha lived this double life. Coming home to Jamal at night, pretending everything was normal while spending her days dreaming about Darius and the life they were planning together. Jamal never suspected a thing. He was so wrapped up in his own career, his own world, that he didn't notice how distant she'd become. He didn't notice the new clothes she was buying, the expensive perfume she was wearing, the way she'd started paying more attention to her appearance. He didn't notice that she'd checked out of their marriage completely. By spring of 2014, Keisha made her final decision. She was going to leave Jamal and start her new life with Darius. Darius had been promoted to executive vice president with an enormous salary increase. He'd just purchased a stunning mansion in an exclusive Atlanta neighborhood. He was talking about taking her to Paris, to Dubai, to all these exotic locations she'd only seen in magazines. More than that, he was talking about marriage, about making their relationship official and public, about building a life together that would be everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. All she had to do was leave Jamal. All she had to do was end her marriage and walk away from the past 15 years. It should have been harder than it was. It should have torn her apart with guilt and sadness. But honestly, by that point, she felt nothing but relief and excitement about finally being free to pursue what she really wanted. One Thursday evening in May, Keisha came home and told Jamal they needed to talk. He was sitting on the couch watching television, looking tired and worn down like he always did these days. "What's up?" he asked, not even bothering to turn off the TV. "Jamal, I need to be honest with you about something," she began, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. "I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been happy for a long time, and I don't think our marriage is working." That got his attention. He turned off the television and looked at her with confusion and concern flooding his face. "What are you talking about, Keisha? Where is this coming from?" "It's coming from the fact that we barely know each other anymore," she said, the words she'd practiced flowing out easily now. "We're strangers living in the same house. We don't talk. We don't connect. We don't have anything in common anymore. I think we've grown apart, and I think it's time we both admitted that and moved on with our lives." Jamal stood up, looking genuinely devastated. "Baby, if you're unhappy, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can make more time for each other. We can work on this together. Please, don't just give up on us after everything we've built." His words should have moved her. They should have made her reconsider. But all she could think about was Darius waiting for her, about the life they were going to have together. "I've already made up my mind," she said coldly. "I want a divorce. I've already contacted a lawyer and started the paperwork. I think it's best if we handle this quickly and cleanly." "Is there someone else?" Jamal asked, his voice breaking. "Keisha, please just tell me the truth. Is there another man?" She should have lied. She should have spared him that additional pain. But she was so eager to start her new life that she wanted everything out in the open. "Yes," she admitted, "there is someone else. His name is Darius Sterling. He's an executive at Peterson Global, and I'm in love with him. I'm sorry, Jamal, but this is what I want. This is what I need." The look on Jamal's face in that moment is something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. It was like she'd physically stabbed him in the heart. Pain, betrayal, disbelief, shock, all crashed across his features at once. "After everything," he whispered, "after everything I've given you, everything we've built together, everything we've been through, you're throwing it all away for some rich man who's probably just using you." "He's not using me," she snapped defensively. "He loves me. He sees my value in ways you never did. He appreciates me. He wants to build a real future with me." "I wanted to build a future with you," Jamal said, tears streaming down his face now. "I thought we were building it together. I thought we were a team." "We were," Keisha said, grabbing her pre-packed overnight bag from where she'd hidden it in the hall closet. "But I need more than what you can give me now. I'm sorry, Jamal. I really am. But I'm leaving tonight. My lawyer will contact yours about the divorce proceedings." And just like that, she walked out the door. Walked out on 15 years of marriage. Walked out on a man who'd loved her faithfully and completely. Walked out on everything they'd built together. She drove straight to Darius's mansion in Buckhead, her hands shaking on the steering wheel, but her heart filled with excitement about her new beginning. Darius was waiting for her at the door with champagne and roses. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. "You did it," he murmured against her lips. "You're finally free. Now our real life together can begin." That night, they celebrated what she thought was her liberation. They made love in his enormous bed. They talked about all the places they'd travel together, all the experiences they'd share, all the adventures waiting for them. Keisha felt alive. She felt free. She felt like she was finally living the life she deserved. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that her new dream life was actually a nightmare waiting to unfold. A nightmare that would cost her everything she'd thrown away and everything she thought she was gaining. The first 6 months living with Darius were absolutely incredible beyond Keisha's wildest imagination. They moved into his mansion together officially, and she felt like she was living in some kind of fairy tale that didn't even seem real. The house was absolutely stunning. Over 8,000 square feet, with marble floors, a gourmet kitchen, a home theater, a wine cellar, an infinity pool overlooking the city. Her closet, just her closet alone, was bigger than the entire apartment she and Jamal used to share. Darius spoiled her constantly and excessively. Designer clothes appeared in her closet weekly. Expensive jewelry materialized on special occasions, and sometimes just because it was Tuesday. They ate at the finest restaurants in Atlanta. They attended exclusive events and galas where she rubbed shoulders with Atlanta's elite, people she'd only ever read about in magazines. He took her to Paris for 2 weeks, where they stayed in a luxury suite at the Ritz, and he proposed to her at the top of the Eiffel Tower with a ring so massive she was almost embarrassed to wear it in public. Her divorce from Jamal was finalized in November of 2014. It was quick, clean, and brutal. Jamal didn't fight her on anything. He just wanted it over with as fast as possible so he could move on with his life and try to heal from what she'd done to him. She heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd taken the divorce extremely hard, that he'd lost weight, stopped socializing, barely functioned at work for months. Part of her felt guilty about that, but mostly she was too caught up in her new life to think much about her old one. Darius and Keisha got married in January of 2015 in a lavish ceremony at the St. Regis Hotel. It was everything a wedding should be. Elegant, expensive, absolutely perfect. They had 200 guests. She wore a custom Vera Wang gown that cost more than a luxury car. They honeymooned in Bora Bora for 3 weeks. She was living a life she couldn't have even dreamed about 5 years earlier. She was Mrs. Darius Maximilian Sterling, wife of one of Atlanta's most powerful and successful businessmen. She had money, status, access to a world she'd never even known existed. At work, her position changed dramatically. Darius made sure she was promoted to senior marketing director with a salary that was triple what she'd been making before. She had her own team, her own budget, real authority and influence within the company. People treated her differently now. With respect, sure, but also with a certain wariness. Everyone knew she'd left her husband for the boss. Everyone knew how she'd climbed the ladder. There were whispers, gossip, judgment. But she told herself she didn't care. She told herself that jealousy was natural when someone was living the dream. Life seemed absolutely perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Looking back now, she should have known that something was wrong. She should have noticed the signs. But she was so blinded by the lifestyle, so caught up in the material things, so convinced that she'd made the right choice, that she missed all the warning signals. Darius had always been private about his health. He went to doctor's appointments alone. He occasionally took medications she didn't recognize. When she'd ask about it, he'd brush it off as nothing serious, just preventive care and vitamins for a man his age. She never pushed, because she trusted him completely. She believed in him the same way she'd once believed in Jamal. But in August of 2015, everything changed in the most horrific way imaginable. Keisha had been feeling tired for weeks, running a low-grade fever that wouldn't go away. She was losing weight despite eating normally. She had this persistent cough that wouldn't quit. At first she thought it was just stress from work, maybe a stubborn virus she couldn't shake. But when the symptoms didn't improve after 3 weeks, she finally went to see her doctor. Dr. Patricia Hamilton had been her physician for years. She was thorough, no nonsense, and genuinely cared about her patients. She ran a full battery of tests, blood work, chest x-rays, the whole works. 2 days later, she called Keisha and asked her to come back to her office immediately. She said they needed to discuss her test results in person. Keisha went alone. Darius was on a business trip to Los Angeles and wouldn't be back for another 2 days. She wasn't particularly worried. She figured the doctor would tell her she had some kind of infection that needed stronger antibiotics. She was so naive, so completely, tragically unprepared for what was about to happen. Dr. Hamilton met her in her private office instead of an exam room, which should have been her first clue that something was seriously wrong. Her face was grave, her usual warm smile nowhere to be seen. "Keisha, please sit down," she said gently. "I have some results that we need to discuss." She sat, her stomach starting to churn with unease. "What is it? What's wrong?" Dr. Hamilton took a deep breath and looked at her with such profound sadness in her eyes. "Your blood work came back with some concerning findings. We ran additional confirmatory tests to be absolutely certain. Keisha, you've tested positive for HIV." The world stopped. Time froze. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Those words didn't make sense. They couldn't be real. "What?" she whispered. "No, that's impossible. There must be some mistake. Run the tests again. This can't be right." "We ran them twice," Dr. Hamilton said softly. "I'm so sorry, Keisha, but there's no mistake. You have HIV. HIV. The virus that causes AIDS. The disease she'd only ever heard about in health class or public service announcements. The disease that happened to other people, not to her. Never to her." "But how?" she asked, her mind spinning wildly. "I don't understand. How is this possible?" "HIV is transmitted through blood, sexual contact, or from mother to child during pregnancy," Dr. Hamilton explained gently. "Given that you're not pregnant and don't use intravenous drugs, the most likely transmission route is sexual contact." Sexual contact. Darius. "Oh my God," Keisha breathed, the realization hitting her like a freight train. "Darius. It has to be Darius. He's the only person I've been with besides my ex-husband. We'll need to contact your sexual partners so they can be tested as well," Dr. Hamilton said, "including your ex-husband." Jamal. Oh God, Jamal. What if she'd infected Jamal before she left him? She started crying then. Huge, racking sobs that shook her entire body. Everything came crashing down on her at once. The life she'd thrown away, the man she'd betrayed, the disease she now carried in her body, the future she'd just lost. Dr. Hamilton let her cry for several minutes before continuing. "Keisha, I know this is devastating news, but I need you to listen to me very carefully. HIV is no longer the death sentence it used to be. With proper treatment and medication, people with HIV can live long, healthy lives. You can manage this." But she barely heard her. All she could think about was Darius. Darius had given her this disease. Darius had infected her knowingly or unknowingly, and either way he'd destroyed her health, possibly her life. Did he know? She asked Dr. Hamilton. Is there any way to tell if Darius knew he had HIV before he infected me? I can't answer that, she said. You'll need to have that conversation with him directly. But Keisha, if he knew and didn't tell you, that's not just morally wrong. In Georgia, it's actually illegal. Knowingly transmitting HIV without disclosure is a criminal offense. Keisha left Dr. Hamilton's office in a complete daze. She sat in her car in the parking lot for over an hour, just staring at nothing, trying to process what had just happened to her entire life. When she finally drove home to the mansion, everything looked different. All the luxury, all the expensive furnishings, all the material wealth suddenly seemed meaningless, empty, hollow. What good was a designer closet when she had a virus in her blood that could kill her? What good was a mansion when her health had been destroyed? She called Darius immediately. He answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful and relaxed. Hey baby, what's up? I was just about to head into my afternoon meetings. We need to talk, she said, her voice flat and dead. Right now. This can't wait. Okay, you're scaring me a little bit. What's going on? I just came from the doctor, she said, tears streaming down her face again. I have HIV, Darius. I tested positive for HIV. There was a long, terrible silence on the other end of the line. Keisha, he started. Did you know? She interrupted, her voice rising to a scream. Did you know you had HIV when we started sleeping together? Did you know when you convinced me to leave my husband? Did you know when you married me? Did you know? More silence. And in that silence, she had her answer. You knew, she whispered, all the fight draining out of her. Oh my God, you knew the whole time. Keisha, let me explain, Darius began. Don't you dare, she said, her voice cold as ice now. Don't you dare try to explain or justify what you've done. You infected me with a deadly virus. You destroyed my health. You ruined my life. And you did it knowingly. It's not deadly anymore, Darius said defensively. With the medications available now, HIV is completely manageable. I've been positive for 8 years and I'm perfectly healthy. You'll be fine, Keisha. 8 years? She shrieked. You've been positive for 8 years and you never told me. You let me leave my husband. You married me. You put my life at risk. And you never once thought you should maybe mention this tiny little detail? I was going to tell you, Darius said. I just never found the right time. And then as more time passed, it became harder and harder to bring up. I didn't want to lose you. So instead you infected me, she said bitterly. Instead you took away my choice, my health, my future. You know what? This conversation is over. Don't bother coming home. I don't want to see your face ever again. She hung up before he could respond. The next few weeks were the darkest of Keisha's entire life. She had to inform Jamal about her diagnosis so he could get tested. That phone call was one of the hardest things she ever had to do. Jamal, it's Keisha, she said when he answered, his voice wary. I need to tell you something important. I just found out that I have HIV. You need to get tested immediately. The silence on the other end was deafening. Please tell me you're joking, Jamal finally said, his voice hollow. I wish I was. I'm so sorry, Jamal. I'm so incredibly sorry. Jamal got tested the next day. Thank God, thank everything holy. He came back negative. By some miracle, she hadn't infected him during their marriage. He'd been spared from her terrible choices. But that didn't make her feel any better. In fact, it made her feel worse. It highlighted just how catastrophically she'd destroyed her own life for absolutely nothing. She filed for divorce from Darius immediately. She also contacted a lawyer about criminal charges. In Georgia, knowingly transmitting HIV without disclosure is a felony. Darius could face up to 10 years in prison if convicted. The lawyer she hired, a fierce woman named Monique Jefferson, took on her case with passion and determination. This man deliberately infected you with a deadly virus, she said firmly. He robbed you of your health and potentially years of your life. He deserves to face the full consequences of his actions. The case moved forward slowly but surely. Darius tried to argue that he had told her about his status, that she'd known all along and accepted the risk, but he couldn't produce any evidence of that because it was a complete lie. Meanwhile, Keisha's health situation became her new reality. She started antiretroviral therapy immediately. The medications made her sick at first, nauseous, exhausted, dealing with constant headaches. But Dr. Hamilton assured her that side effects usually decreased over time and that the treatment would protect her immune system and prevent the virus from progressing to AIDS. She had to leave her job at Peterson Global. She couldn't stomach the thought of working at the same company where Darius held power, where everyone knew their story. Plus, the stress and the medications made it impossible for her to function at the level required for her position. She moved out of the mansion and into a modest apartment in a different part of Atlanta. She sold or donated all the expensive clothes and jewelry Darius had bought her. She wanted nothing from him, nothing that would remind her of the terrible mistake she'd made. The divorce was finalized in March of 2016. She walked away with a settlement that was substantial but far less than she would have gotten if Darius hadn't committed a crime against her. Honestly, she didn't care about the money. She just wanted to be free of him and everything he represented. The criminal case went to trial in June of 2016. Keisha had to testify about their relationship, about how he'd pursued her, about how he'd never disclosed his HIV status despite having multiple opportunities to do so. Darius's lawyers tried to paint her as a gold digger who'd left her faithful husband for money and was now trying to destroy Darius out of spite. They suggested that she might have contracted HIV from someone else and was unfairly blaming Darius. But the evidence was overwhelming. Medical records showed that Darius had been diagnosed with HIV in 2007, years before they'd started their affair. There was documented proof that he'd been receiving treatment. Phone records and emails showed that he'd never once mentioned his status to her. Former partners of his came forward to testify that he had a pattern of not disclosing his HIV status to sexual partners. In August of 2016, Darius Maximilian Sterling was convicted of reckless conduct for knowingly transmitting HIV. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Keisha felt no satisfaction when the verdict was read. No sense of justice or vindication, just a deep, profound emptiness. Because even though Darius was going to prison, even though he was being held accountable for his actions, it didn't change her reality. It didn't cure her. It didn't give her back her health, or her old life, or the 15 years she'd spent building a marriage that she'd thrown away for a man who'd knowingly infected her with a deadly virus. Today, as we tell you this story, Keisha is approaching 2 years of living with HIV. Her viral load is undetectable thanks to the medications she takes every single day. Her immune system is strong. Physically, she's managing the condition successfully. But emotionally, spiritually, she's still trying to put together the pieces of who she is and who she wants to be. She reached out to Jamal about 6 months ago. She didn't expect anything from him. She didn't expect forgiveness or friendship or anything at all. She just wanted to apologize properly for what she'd done to him, for how she'd betrayed him, for how she'd thrown away what they had. They met for coffee at a neutral location. He looked good, healthier than she'd seen him in years, actually. He'd lost the stress weight. He seemed more relaxed, more at peace. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Keisha said nervously. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Jamal admitted. "But my therapist encouraged me to hear you out if you wanted to apologize. She said it might help with my healing process." "I'm so sorry, Jamal," she said, tears flowing freely now. "I'm sorry for everything, for cheating on you, for leaving you, for throwing away our marriage, for putting your health at risk, for all of it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. You were a good husband and I was too blind and selfish to appreciate what I had." Jamal listened quietly, his face unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "I appreciate your apology," he finally said, "and I want you to know that I've forgiven you. Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger and bitterness was eating me alive. So I've let it go. I've moved on with my life. Are you seeing anyone?" Keisha asked hesitantly. A small smile crossed his face. Actually, yes. Her name is Alicia. She's a teacher. We've been dating for about 8 months now. It's good, Keisha. It's really good. She's kind and patient, and we're building something healthy together. She felt a sharp pang in her chest. Not jealousy exactly, but a profound sense of loss for what could have been. I'm genuinely happy for you, Keisha said, and she meant it. You deserve all the happiness in the world. So do you, Jamal said gently. What you did was wrong, Keisha. The choices you made hurt me deeply, but what Darius did to you was criminal. You didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. I hope you're able to heal and build a good life for yourself. They talked for another hour. Not about them or their past, but about his new relationship, about her health management, about life in general. When they parted ways, they hugged briefly. It felt like closure, like the final ending of a chapter that had needed to end for so long. This story is being shared today not because Keisha is proud of what she did. She's deeply, profoundly ashamed of the choices she made. She destroyed a good marriage for a fantasy. She betrayed a faithful man who loved her. She threw away something real and meaningful for something shiny and ultimately hollow. And she paid a price that she'll be paying for the rest of her life. But this story is being shared because we want others to learn from her mistakes. We want you to understand that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it's dead. Sometimes it's poisonous. Sometimes what looks like paradise is actually hell waiting to trap you. We want you to appreciate what you have before it's too late. We want you to value the people who love you faithfully and consistently, even if they can't give you mansions or designer clothes or exotic vacations. We want you to understand that real love, true partnership, genuine connection, those things are worth infinitely more than material wealth. And most importantly, we want you to protect your health. We want you to ask questions. We want you to demand honesty from your sexual partners. We want you to get tested regularly. We want you to never ever assume that someone has your best interests at heart just because they seem successful or sophisticated or powerful. Today, Keisha is working as a patient advocate at an HIV clinic there in Atlanta. She spends her days helping people who've just been diagnosed navigate this new reality they're facing. She listens to their fears. She shares her story. She helps them understand that life can still have meaning and purpose even after diagnosis. It's not the life she imagined for herself. It's not the fairy tale she thought she was chasing when she left Jamal for Darius. But it's meaningful. It's real. It matters to people. Her mother visits her every Sunday. They cook together and talk, and sometimes she cries while her mother holds her and tells her that she's still her daughter, that she still loves her, that her worth isn't defined by her mistakes. She's learning to forgive herself, slowly. She's learning to accept responsibility for her choices while also acknowledging that she was a victim of Darius's criminal actions. She's learning to find purpose and meaning in a life that looks nothing like what she'd planned. And she's learning to live with HIV as a chronic, manageable condition rather than a death sentence. Now we want to turn to all of you watching this right now. We want to ask you something crucial. What would you do if you found out your partner had been lying to you about something this serious? What would you do if you discovered that the person you trusted with your health, your body, your life, had betrayed you in the most fundamental way possible? And more importantly, what are you willing to risk for what looks like a better life? We want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell us if you've ever been tempted to leave a good relationship for something that seemed better. Tell us if you've made choices you regret. Tell us what you've learned from your mistakes. And while you're commenting, we absolutely need you to do us a favor. Subscribe to Tales After Dark right now and smash that notification bell so hard it breaks. This channel is filled with stories exactly like this one. Stories about consequences. Stories about choices. Stories about real people facing real situations and the lessons we can learn from their experiences. Hit that like button. If this story made you think twice about the choices you're making in your own life, hit like if you believe that sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we have to learn through painful experience. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Share it with a friend who's considering leaving their relationship for someone else. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that material wealth and status aren't worth sacrificing your health, your integrity, your soul. And check out the other videos on this channel. We have hundreds of stories covering every genre, every situation, every type of human experience you can imagine. Stories that will make you think, make you feel, make you examine your own life and choices. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to Keisha's story without judgment. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our truths, our mistakes, our lessons learned. This has been the story of Keisha Alexandria Monroe. Remember, not everything that glitters is gold. Sometimes what looks like a diamond is actually broken glass waiting to cut you. Sometimes the person offering you the world is actually taking everything from you. Sometimes the grass on the other side isn't greener, it's poisoned. Protect yourselves, value what you have, and for God's sake, demand honesty from the people you allow into your body, your heart, your life. Stay safe, stay smart, and always, always protect your health above everything else.